Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the idea of solving and graphing inequalities. The big thing here is that you're also going to continue to use a lot of the skills that we've learned along the way. One-step equations, two-step equations, multi-step equations, all of that still applies here. So go ahead and follow along. To solve inequalities, follow the same process as solving equations, but with one exception. Okay, so this is the exception that we're going to be talking about today. When you multiply or divide by a negative number, you're going to switch the direction of the inequality. Also, it may be helpful to get all of the variables to the left side of the equation. Alright, just so you don't confuse yourself with less than and greater than. Okay, so let me give you a quick example of switching the direction of the inequality. So you have this one-step inequality. It says negative 2 multiplied by x is greater than 8. So in this case, my middle is this greater than symbol, so I'm going to keep that in the middle. I know that this is negative 2 multiplied by x, so the inverse of multiplication is going to be division. So I'm going to divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2. Okay, so now I have x is greater than negative 4. But what I want you to pay attention to is that we just divided by a negative number. Since we divided by a negative number, this stays the same, but the inequality switches and it should be x is less than negative 4. Okay, that's the main difference in today. Okay, we're also going to learn about how to graph inequalities, which is going to be a new concept, but as far as actually solving and doing the computations, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you switch the inequality. So if it's this, it's greater than, you change it to less than. If it's less than, you change it to greater than. If it's less than or equal to, you change it to greater than or equal to. Okay, let's keep moving. So, then you would want to use the following table to determine how to graph the inequality. Okay? So, what you're going to do is you're going to look at your symbol table. Alright? So this symbol right here is greater than. This symbol right here is less than. People ask me, how do you remember that, Mr. Rizkala? Here's my greater than, here's my less than. What I do is I actually put a little dash right here, and if you notice, this kind of looks like the number 4, and this kind of looks like the number 7. And I know that 7 is greater than 4, and 4 is less than 7. That's just one way that you can remember it. Okay? Now, you might notice this looks really similar to the greater than symbol. The only difference is that it has a line underneath. So what that means is greater than or equal to. Same thing here. This means less than or equal to. Okay? So there's going to be two main things that are going to be important when we're graphing these. Okay? So is it going to be a point or a hole? And are you going to shade lower or are you going to shade higher? Okay, so for a greater than symbol with no line underneath, it's going to be a hole. Okay, so that means at the beginning of the line, it's going to be a hole. It's going to look something like that. Less than symbol, same thing. It's going to be a hole. A greater than or equal to symbol will be a point. So it'll be filled in, like this. So it'll look something like this. And then less than or equal to will also be a point, but it will be pointing the other direction. Okay? So far, point versus a hole. If you have the line underneath, then it's a point. Alright? The equal to's have a point. If you don't have a line underneath, it's a hole. Okay? And now we need to figure out whether we need to shade lower or higher. So that's just based on the direction that we're going. So if it says greater than, that means I'm going to shade higher than the number. All right, that's going to be an arrow facing higher. Same with greater than or equal to. Those will both be higher. But if it says less than, then it's going to be lower. So it's going to be an arrow going this way. Lower. An arrow going this way. Okay? So again, point versus whole. Are you going to shade lower? Are you going to shade higher? This would be a good time to pause and kind of practice with some different, try to guess what this is going to be, try to guess what this is going to be, what will this be, what will this be. Okay? Let's move forward. So here's the first example. It says 3 multiplied by x subtract 5 is greater than or equal to negative 5. Okay, so then you're going to start the same way. Instead of an equal sign, though, your middle is a greater than or equal to symbol. So bring that down. Your variable is still the letter, so that's the x value here. Okay, so first thing that I'm going to do is simplify this. Right? I see this distributive property that I can use. So I'm going to multiply 3 by x, that gives me 3x. 3 by negative 5, that gives me negative 15, is greater than or equal to negative 9. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and use SADMAP. I'm going to start on the side of the variable. I ask myself, do I see subtraction? Yes, I see subtract 15. So instead I'm going to add 15 to both sides of the equation. Make sure I keep my middle greater than or equal to. That creates a 0 pair, so now I have 3 multiplied by x is greater than or equal to positive 6. So now I keep going. Do I have addition? No. Do I have division? No. Do I have multiplication? Yes. So I'm going to use the inverse operation, which is division. I'm going to divide by 3, divide by 3. This gives me a 1 pair, so x is greater than or equal to positive 2. Now here's the thing with these is that I'm actually not done. I want to actually now graph the inequality. So if you look back to your table, I look at greater than or equal to. Is that a point or a whole? And I know that that's going to be a point. So I'm going to start off with a point at x equals 2. So here's x equals 2. I'm going to start off with a point. And then, am I going to shade greater or less than? This is a greater than or equal to symbol, so I'm going to shade higher. So what's higher than positive 2? All of these numbers. So I'm going to shade like this. I'm going to draw an arrow. Okay? That's how you finish off that problem. Okay, let's go ahead and do example 2. Again, I'm going to first solve my equation here. Okay? So I find my middle, which is the less than symbol. Bring this up a little bit. Less than symbol. Okay, and then I just want to start simplifying. So I actually see like terms on this side, a positive 2m and a negative 7m. So I'm going to make that a negative 5m. I also notice on the right side that I have the distributive property, so I can go ahead and distribute. So that's 3m, 3 multiplied by m, and 3 multiplied by 8 is positive 24. Now remember, I'm looking for my variable, which in this case is m. Okay, so now I want to make my 0 pairs to try and get all my variables to one side. So I notice I have 3n and negative 5n, but they're on different sides of the equal sign. Okay, now I made a little note earlier that you want to try and get all your variables on the left side. So really, I'd like them to all be over here. So what does that mean? I need to get rid of this 3m. So it's a positive 3m, so I'm going to subtract 3m. That makes a 0 pair. I'm going to subtract 3m here. So now I've got negative 8 multiplied by m is less than positive 24. Negative 8 multiplied by m, I use the inverse operation, which is division. I'm going to divide by negative 8, divide by negative 8, creates a positive 1m. And here is where I want you to pay attention. I just divided by a negative number, so now my inequality is no longer less than, but it is greater than. So m is greater than negative 3. Okay? So, I look back to my table, greater than, that means I have a hole, so it's going to be open, and then I'm going to shade higher. So let me start with a hole at negative 3, that's right here. Notice how I did not fill it in. Then I'm going to go everything higher than that, which is all to the right. Okay, and here's the last example. This would be a good time to pause, try the example on your own first to see if you're understanding it, and then check back with the video. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and find my middle, which in this case is a less than or equal to symbol. And my variables are r. I look on my left side, I notice that I can simplify this. I can use the distributive property. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 2 by 5r, that's 10r. And then 2 multiplied by 1, that's a positive 2. This side stays the same, negative 5 plus 3r. Now I think to myself, I want my variables on the left. It'll make things easier with the less than or equal to sign. So I notice these like terms, 10r and 3r, right? But I actually want to keep things on this side. I want to keep the r's on this side. So I actually am going to go ahead and get rid of the 3r on the right side. So I subtract 3r and I subtract 3r. So that makes a 0 pair. So I'm left with 7r, add 2, still less than or equal to negative 5. Okay. Now from here, I can use SADMAP. So I ask myself, on the side of the variable, do I see subtraction? No. Do I see addition? Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and do the inverse and subtract 2. So I'll end up with 7r is less than or equal to negative 7. This is 7 multiplied by r. I'm actually going to bring this over here. So that's 7 multiplied by r less than or equal to negative 7. So instead of multiplication, I'm going to use the inverse operation, which is division. Divide 7 on both sides. So that is r less than or equal to negative 1. So I look at this symbol. Is it a point or a hole? I check my table. It is a point. Do I shade higher or lower? This is a less than symbol, so I'm going to shade lower. So I'm going to start at negative 1. I'm going to make a point. I'm going to shade lower, so I'm going to shade everything to the left. Okay, and that's our lesson for today.